Stoicism is an ancient philosophy, but its practical application remains extremely relevant, especially in modern times. Developed by philosophers such as Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism offers a practical approach to living a fulfilling and resilient life, regardless of external circumstances. Rather than focusing on complex philosophical abstractions, Stoics sought tools to address life's real challenges, fostering emotional balance, mental clarity, and a deeper connection with what truly matters. Welcome to our channel. Here, you will find reflections and tips on Stoicism, as well as techniques for applying these lessons and improving your mental health. Today, many people face constant anxiety, stress, and uncertainty, making it easy to feel overwhelmed by such an unpredictable world. This is where Stoicism shines, offering strategies for cultivating calm and self-mastery even in the face of difficulties. One such strategy is the concept of negative visualization, premeditatio malorum, which will be the central theme of this video. Negative visualization is a simple but powerful practice. It involves intentionally and rationally visualizing the worst-case scenarios. It may seem counterintuitive at first, but by mentally confronting challenges before they happen, you can reduce the emotional impact if they become reality. This technique has helped people find serenity in the midst of chaos for centuries, and when applied correctly, it can be an effective tool for managing anxiety. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the concept of negative visualization, showing you how it works, why it's effective, and how you can integrate it into your life. We'll start by defining what exactly this practice is, delving into its philosophical origins, and understanding how it differs from mere pessimism. We'll then look at its relationship to anxiety, discuss the science behind the technique, and provide practical examples to help you apply it in your daily life. Before we get started, why don't you subscribe to the channel so you can continue receiving our videos? Let's get started. Negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum in Latin, is a philosophical practice developed by the Stoics that consists of consciously imagining the worst possible scenarios before they happen. The goal of this practice is not to create a state of negativity, but rather to prepare the mind to deal with adversity in a rational and balanced way. In other words, it is a controlled mental simulation that helps to reduce the emotional impact of challenging situations. Seneca, one of the best-known Stoic thinkers, said that the man who foresees misfortune suffers less from it. For the Stoics, the exercise of negative visualization was not an invitation to fear or resignation, but rather a way to face reality with courage and pragmatism. This practice is based on the principle that it is easier to overcome difficulties when one is already mentally prepared for them. For example, imagine that you have an important meeting at work that causes you great anxiety. Instead of avoiding thinking about what could go wrong, negative visualization encourages you to imagine challenging scenarios. What would happen if you forgot something important? What if others disagree with your proposal? By visualizing these scenarios, you reflect on how you could deal with them in a practical and rational way, reducing your fear of the unknown. This practice also teaches us something fundamental: the impermanence and unpredictability of life. By accepting that the unexpected can happen, you learn to face situations with more resilience and less emotional resistance. Negative visualization works because it addresses one of the biggest triggers of anxiety: fear of the unknown. When we are faced with uncertainty, our mind tends to create catastrophic scenarios in an uncontrolled manner. This process is instinctive, as the human brain is programmed to identify and avoid threats. However, this mental hyperactivity can lead us to a cycle of excessive and paralyzing worry. The Stoics recognize that, instead of trying to avoid negative thoughts, it is more effective to confront them consciously and deliberately. This is the foundation of negative visualization. By intentionally visualizing the worst-case scenario, you take control of the mental narrative. Instead of being surprised or overcome by fear, You are already mentally prepared to deal with the situation. This exercise does not eliminate the possibility of problems, but it reduces the emotional impact they can cause. After all, what affects us is not only the event itself, but also our reaction to it. As Epictetus said, it is not things that disturb us, but the opinions we have about them. By practicing negative visualization, you train your mind to respond in a more rational and resilient way. This creates a state of emotional readiness that reduces the suffering caused by real or imagined adversities. One of the biggest concerns when talking about negative visualization is the confusion with pessimism. After all, how could thinking about the worst possible scenario not lead to a state of constant negativity? The answer lies in intention and control. While pessimism is a defeatist and passive view, negative visualization is an active and strategic practice. Pessimism is characterized by the belief that things will inevitably go wrong, feeding a mindset of resignation. People who are pessimistic tend to focus only on the negative aspects of situations, often ignoring opportunities or solutions. This can lead to paralysis, inaction, and a cycle of self-sabotage. In contrast, negative visualization is a rational approach that seeks to anticipate challenges in order to better address them. When you practice negative visualization, the goal is not to convince yourself that something bad will happen, but rather to prepare for it if it does. For example, if you are planning a trip and practice negative visualization, you might imagine scenarios such as a flight delay, lost luggage, or unexpected events in your itinerary. The crucial difference is in the response. Instead of simply worrying, you take practical steps, such as packing essential items in your carry-on or building extra time into your schedule. In addition, negative visualization is anchored in realistic optimism. By reflecting on worst-case scenarios, you also recognize your ability to cope with them and overcome your fear of the unknown. As a result, you feel more confident and less vulnerable. For many people, anxiety stems from a fear of the unknown and a sense of lack of control. Situations that have not yet happened and may never happen occupy the mind, creating a cycle of constant worry. Negative visualization emerges as a powerful tool for breaking this cycle by addressing the root of the problem, uncertainty. When you consciously imagine the worst-case scenario, what once seemed uncertain and frightening takes shape and becomes clear. Instead of getting lost in a sea of what-ifs, you can structure your thoughts and find practical solutions to potential problems. This not only reduces feelings of vulnerability, but also increases confidence in your ability to deal with adversity. Negative visualization teaches you that anticipated suffering is often greater than actual suffering. By mentally visualizing and accepting challenges, you lessen the emotional impact if they actually happen. It's like desensitizing your mind. What seemed unbearable becomes something you can deal with. This practice also aligns with modern therapy techniques, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which teaches you how to confront anxious thoughts rationally. Just as CBT helps to restructure thought patterns, negative visualization provides a practical way to face the fear of the unknown. While negative visualization has its roots in Stoic philosophy, its effects can be explained by modern science, particularly in the fields of psychology and neuroscience. One of the central concepts behind this practice is desensitization. When you consciously visualize challenging scenarios, your brain begins to familiarize itself with them, reducing the emotional intensity that these thoughts can generate. In the brain, this is related to the amygdala, the region responsible for processing emotions such as fear and anxiety. Studies show that when you anticipate stressful events in a controlled way, activity in the amygdala decreases, while areas associated with rational thinking, such as the prefrontal cortex, become more active. In simple terms, this means that you start to react with less emotion and more logic. Negative visualization also works as a form of imaginal exposure, a technique often used in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. This technique helps people face their fears by gradually exposing themselves to them, either mentally or in action. Over time, this reduces the fear response associated with the event. For example, by imagining an uncomfortable social scenario, you begin to realize that the worst that can happen is not as catastrophic as it seems. There are also mental health benefits to practicing acceptance. When you contemplate the worst-case scenario and think about how to deal with it, your brain starts to adopt a problem-solving mindset instead of just reacting to stress. This fosters a sense of control that is crucial for combating anxiety. Now that we understand the concept and benefits of negative visualization, it's time to put the practice into action. Below, I provide a practical guide with clear steps to help you start integrating this technique into your routine and better cope with challenging situations. Step 1. Choose a specific situation. Start by identifying something that is causing you anxiety or worry. This could be an upcoming event, such as a presentation at work, a difficult conversation, or even a trip. Choosing a clear focus for the exercise helps make the practice more purposeful and focused. Step 2. Visualize the worst-case scenario. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine the worst that could happen in the situation. Get specific. What would be the challenges or setbacks? For example, if you have a presentation coming up, visualize yourself forgetting your notes or facing unexpected criticism. The goal here is not to amplify your fear, but to make the scenario clearer and more concrete. Step 3. Ask yourself, what would I do? After visualizing the worst-case scenario, think about how you would react. Ask yourself, what practical actions could I take to deal with this? For example, if you forgot your notes, you could improvise based on what you remember. This step helps you transform your fear into a solution, reducing your feelings of helplessness. Step 4. Reflect on the real impact. Ask yourself, if this were to actually happen, what would the long-term impact be? Often, you will realize that the consequences are not as severe as they first seem. This reflection helps you put the problem in perspective, reducing the associated emotional burden. Step 5. End with a balanced view. End the exercise with a positive, realistic affirmation. For example, even if things get out of control, I know I have the resources to deal with it. This builds confidence and creates a sense of emotional preparedness. Tips for optimizing practice. Do the exercise in a calm environment, free from distractions. Keep the visualizations short, between 5 and 10 minutes. Practice regularly, especially before events that generate anxiety. To better understand how negative visualization can be applied in everyday life, let's look at a practical example. Imagine that you have an important presentation at work and you are feeling anxious. You are afraid of forgetting the information, not meeting the team's expectations, or making an embarrassing mistake. These thoughts are occupying your mind and increasing your stress. Step 1. Identify the situation. You identify that the event causing anxiety is the presentation at work. Your main concern is the possibility of making mistakes or not being understood by your colleagues. Step 2. Visualize the worst-case scenario. Close your eyes and imagine the most challenging scenario. Visualize yourself in front of the team, realizing that you have forgotten an important part of the presentation. Perhaps you become nervous, stutter, or receive a question that you do not know how to answer. Let this scenario unfold in your mind. Step 3. Ask yourself, what would I do? Now, think about how you might handle the situation. If you forget part of the presentation, you can refer to your notes or improvise based on what you know. If you stutter, you can pause, take a deep breath, and continue. If you get a difficult question, you can admit that you don't have the answer at that moment, but commit to finding out the information. Step 4. Assess the real impact. Think about the long-term consequences of the scenario. Would making a small mistake really hurt your reputation? Chances are your team would understand and the event would be forgotten in no time. This perspective reduces the emotional weight of what seemed like a disaster. Step 5. Conclude with confidence. End the exercise with an encouraging thought such as, I may not be perfect, but I am prepared to deal with whatever unforeseen happens. Acceptance is a fundamental pillar of negative visualization and, more broadly, of Stoicism. When visualizing challenging scenarios, it is not enough to simply think about how to deal with them. It is essential to accept that unwanted events can occur and that you have no control over everything. This acceptance is not resignation or passivity, but a rational recognition of the unpredictability of life. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great exponents of Stoicism, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Acceptance teaches that suffering often comes from resistance to reality, not from the event itself. When we accept that the unexpected can happen, we reduce internal tension and cultivate a calmer mind. In the practice of negative visualization, acceptance manifests itself in 2 stages. First, by visualizing the worst-case scenario, you welcome the possibility that it could occur. This eliminates the emotional shock caused by the thought, this shouldn't have happened. Second, you reflect on how you will deal with the situation, accepting that even in the face of difficulties, there is always something that can be done. This acceptance also promotes resilience. When you internalize that life is uncertain and full of challenges, you learn to react with more calm and clarity. This is particularly useful in the context of anxiety, as it neutralizes the what-if that often fuels worry. Accepting that negative events are part of human life is not pessimism, but a way of freeing yourself from constant fear. The practice of negative visualization offers a series of emotional benefits that can transform the way we deal with anxiety, uncertainty, and life's challenges. These benefits go beyond simply anticipating problems, promoting a more resilient, confident, and balanced mindset. One of the main emotional benefits is a reduction of fear of the unknown. When we consciously visualize the worst possible scenarios, we give form to what previously seemed nebulous and frightening. This reduces the feeling of helplessness and brings clarity about how to react to adverse situations. As a result, we feel more prepared to face real challenges. Another important benefit is the reduction of the emotional impact in unexpected situations. If something goes wrong, you have already mentally rehearsed how to deal with the problem. This does not eliminate negative emotions, but it reduces their intensity, helping you to remain calm and focused. Negative visualization also strengthens self-confidence. By reflecting on possible solutions to challenging scenarios, you recognize your ability to adapt and overcome. This creates a sense of internal control that is essential for dealing with everyday anxiety and fears. Finally, this practice encourages detachment and acceptance, essential values of Stoicism. By accepting that bad things can happen, you learn to value the present moment without getting caught up in unrealistic expectations or the need for everything to go perfectly. While negative visualization is a powerful tool, it is essential to use it in a balanced and conscious way. When misunderstood or practiced excessively, it can produce opposite results, such as increased anxiety or a tendency to ruminate on negative scenarios. Therefore, understanding your limits is crucial to reap the benefits of this practice without falling into emotional traps. The first point to watch out for is excessive focus on the negative aspects. Negative visualization should not be used to fixate on worst-case scenarios or as a justification for self-defeating thoughts. The goal is to reflect rationally and, more importantly, conclude with an action plan or practical acceptance. Another limit is the time dedicated to the practice. If you spend too much time visualizing potential problems, you may end up intensifying your fear rather than reducing its influence. The practice should be brief and intentional, just long enough to prepare your mind and provide clarity about possible solutions. It's important to remember that negative visualization should be accompanied by a balanced perspective. This means not only thinking about what could go wrong, but also appreciating the opportunities and resources you have to deal with challenges. Stoicism, after all, is not about fearing the future, but about living courageously and calmly. Negative visualization is even more effective when combined with one of Stoicism's central tenets, the dichotomy of control. This concept, explored extensively by Epictetus, teaches that life can be divided into two domains: what is within our control and what is not. Focusing only on what we can control is the key to a more balanced and less anxious life. When practicing negative visualization, the dichotomy of control acts as a compass. When we visualize worst-case scenarios, we are naturally drawn to identifying elements that are beyond our control, such as other people's reactions, random events, or external circumstances. Recognizing these limits is liberating, as it allows us to let go of trying to control the uncontrollable and redirect our energy toward what we can actually influence. For example, imagine that you are preparing for a job interview and you practice negative visualization. You consider the possibility of unexpected questions or the possibility that an interviewer might not like you. The dichotomy of control helps you separate these variables. You cannot control the interviewer's perception, but you can prepare by studying, practicing answers, and presenting your best self. This combination of practices creates a powerful balance. Negative visualization provides clarity about what could go wrong, while the dichotomy of control reinforces where you should focus your energy. Together, these tools help you transform fear into practical, constructive action. Relationships are a central part of our lives, but they can also be significant sources of anxiety, frustration, and conflict. Our expectations about how others will behave often clash with reality, leading to disappointment. Negative visualization, when applied to relationships, helps us navigate these challenges in a more calm and mature way. In the context of relationships, the practice involves reflecting on potential conflicts, miscommunications, or unexpected behaviors from others. For example, imagine that you are worried about an impending argument with a friend or partner. Visualizing the worst-case scenario, such as a major disagreement or an unkind comment, allows you to prepare yourself emotionally while also developing strategies for dealing with the situation constructively. This practice is also deeply connected to acceptance. By considering that people may act in ways you would rather not, you remind yourself that you cannot control other people's behavior, only your response to it. This perspective reduces the distress caused by unrealistic expectations. In addition, negative visualization can improve empathy and patience. By visualizing negative scenarios, you can put yourself in the other person's shoes, better understanding their motivations or limitations. This helps build stronger, more compassionate relationships. Now that you understand the concept, benefits, and applications of negative visualization, it's time to try the practice yourself. This guided exercise is a practical way to integrate the technique into your daily life and face anxiety-provoking situations with greater clarity and confidence. Step 1. Find a quiet moment. Set aside 5 to 10 minutes in a quiet place where you can focus without interruptions. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths to calm your mind. Step 2. Identify a specific situation. Choose something that is causing you anxiety or worry. It could be an upcoming event, such as a meeting, an important date, or even something broader, such as a constant fear of failing in some aspect of your life. Step 3. Visualize the worst-case scenario. With your eyes closed, imagine the most challenging scenario that could happen in this situation. Be specific. What exactly would go wrong? How would you feel? How would other people react? Let the scenario play out in your mind, but stay in a state of observation without getting consumed by emotions. Step 4. Reflect on how you would deal with it. Now, think about the practical actions you could take if the worst did happen. Ask yourself, what would I do? Or how can I adapt? Find possible solutions and remember that you always have internal and external resources to deal with challenges. Step 5. Assess the real impact. Ask yourself, if this were to happen, what would the real long-term impact be? Often, we will realize that the worst-case scenario, while uncomfortable, would not be as devastating as our anxious minds would have us believe. Step 6. End on a positive note. Conclude the exercise by reaffirming your adaptability and resilience. Say something like, if this happens, I can handle it, or I am strong enough to overcome any adversity. Negative visualization is more than a tool for dealing with anxiety. It is a practical philosophy that teaches us to accept the reality of life and face challenges with courage and poise. Throughout this video, we explore how this practice, developed by the Stoics, can help transform the way you approach everyday uncertainty and adversity. Consciously visualizing worst-case scenarios doesn't mean becoming pessimistic or cynical, but rather learning to prepare yourself emotionally and rationally for the unexpected. It's a way to gain clarity about our fears, reduce the emotional impact of difficult situations, and strengthen our confidence in our own ability to adapt. This practice reminds us that even when faced with challenges, there is always something we can control, and often that control begins with our own mind. By adopting negative visualization, you also discover how to value the present more. Knowing that bad things can happen, but that you can face them, helps you reduce attachment to perfectionist expectations and live more fully and presently. Now, it's up to you to try this technique in your life. Take some time to practice the exercises we've shared here. Start small, choosing a specific situation that causes anxiety, and see how negative visualization can bring calm and clarity to your mind. The more you practice, the more natural it will be to apply this philosophy to different areas of your life. Finally, leave your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever used something similar in your life? How was your experience? Sharing your insights may inspire others to adopt this practice. Remember, negative visualization is not about predicting the future, but about preparing for it. By doing so, you will be cultivating a more resilient, peaceful, and balanced life. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and see you in the next video.